Hey, besties and bosses, happy Tuesday. How are you all? We are trying a different setup this week. Last week, Zoom was giving some problems when I was trying to go live. I'm going live from the app today and we will see how this works out. The reason we switched in the first place was Facebook was giving some problems when we were going live in the group directly and then being able to download the video. So we're just gonna see what happens if this hangs up on me. That's not even a thing, but if this cuts out while we're live, I will pick right back up. If you're catching on the replay and that happens, we will make sure that we grab the link to the next video. I know that happened before, which I think was more Wi-Fi thing, but we'll make sure we problem solve as we go. I'm not anticipating any problems, but just saying if that happens, I will make sure we pick right back up where we left off. Whoever is joining on, hi, happy Tuesday for everyone now and later on the replay. But let's get into this week's content. And also I know, I should really preface, I know there's a lot going on in the world today, so I want to be mindful of that. I really want to keep to today's topic because that's what we have scheduled, but I also want to be really mindful that there is a lot going on especially in the US, in our country. And so if anyone, needs to make a comment about that, available for that, and just want to make sure I'm also just giving a moment to acknowledge, yes, we're in this group, we're going to talk about content today, we're going to talk about business, we're going to talk about making money, but I never want to not have a space or create a space where when there are things happening in our world that you can't feel like you can talk about those. So feel free if you need to make any comments, but also use the group and community to connect around our world. Hey Stephanie, nice to have you. So happy to have you. I feel like I can see your face, but it's the name. All right, so we will dive into today's topic. So we're gonna talk about the name of our live stream, which is 3 ways you're leaving money on the table with your content and practical shifts you can make for more of those conversions and to connect and convert more. So I know a lot of times when we're talking about content in here, I talk about either the mindset around your content or we talk specifically about the content of your content. What are you putting in your content? And today I want to have a slightly different conversation and talk about just really some of the practical, tactical things to think about with your content to leverage it to get more eyeballs. I know you have all been there because I have been there when you pour your heart and soul into a post you write or into a live stream or into a podcast episode or whatever your content medium is. You put it out there and then you're like, did anyone even read this? Or I know when I was starting my business, I made the joke in the email about this that only your mom liked it. I love you, Mom. Thank you for being my biggest fan. But really, I feel like when I started my business, it was I think just my mom read this post and the 13 people on my email list. And so I know there can be a little bit of that voice that can come up when that's the case, where it's what's the point of this? Why am I putting in all this effort? That took me so much time. Is anyone even seeing this? And then people are talking about the algorithm and all of that can come up around, hey, Anna, nice to see you here. Anna, speaking about content, Anna creates some brilliant content. Y'all should check her work out and give her some love. But I'm sure all of you have been there where it's only your mom, only your sister, only your best friend is giving your content love and then wondering kind of what's the point about your post. Anna says so true. So first to normalize, I think everyone has been there. I've now been putting content out long enough that thankfully my mom still loves it, but that's not the only person. But just to say super normal, everyone's been there. And I really want to remind you that doesn't mean there isn't a point to your content and that it's not serving you. And this is a whole different live stream and a whole different conversation, but just to speak to the power of how many eyeballs and lurkers there are and people who don't visibly engage with your content and how oftentimes you aren't aware of that until those people do start connecting with you, through a discovery call or from buying from you. But I have now been in business long enough to know so often a post might only get 1 like or 2 likes. And I find out later I'll get an email from someone or someone will book a call with me, or someone will hire me. And it turns out they reference a post or a live stream or something that I'm really? Because I had no freaking idea you were even paying attention because I never saw you visibly engage. So that's not actually the point of today's live stream, but it feels really important just for everyone who feels I put all this work into my content. I put it out there and I don't necessarily feel like anyone's even listening or paying attention. I promise you people are paying way more attention than you think. And I always like to remind my clients this, your words and your work matters, and you never know who needs to hear exactly what you have to say. And waiting until you feel like you have all the eyeballs or all the likes or all the engagement, not only does that harm your business and your marketing, but you really miss out on connecting with that person who really needs what you have to say that you're just not aware is listening or paying attention. Anna says, the people that don't visibly engage with your content, that part. Anna, thank you for being such a saying that is true, because I think it's nice that you have such a successful business for people to hear that's true. Y'all, almost every single one of my clients who has hired me, I did not know they were in my world until they hired me. And they didn't visibly engage with my content until after they hired me. And I think that's just such a helpful thing to hear. And that might not be the case for you and your work, but I think it also depends a lot on what type of work you do and what your message is and what your work is around. Sometimes it's hard for people to engage because it feels very vulnerable. And I know I personally I'm a lurker. I only engage because I'm so aware of how it feels on your end sharing content. But my natural, if I wasn't in the business world, my natural proclivity would be to lurk. Anna says, so true, we can't gauge it on what we see. 1,010%. Anna says, your words and work matters, and waiting till you have all the eyeballs means you might miss out on reaching that person that needs it. 1,000%. Thanks for reflecting that back. I love you so much. So I think a little bit of a side tangent here, but this feels really important. And the other thing that is not the point of today's conversation, but these feel like important prefaces before we go into some of the practical, tactical things with your content, is that reminder that yes, I'm a really big fan of tracking your metrics and knowing the metrics in your business and looking at the data in your business. But I want to just give a general PSA here that means really looking at the metrics that matter in your business. And this is a whole nother conversation, but it's really tied into what we're talking about even here in terms of those lurkers. I would really love someone to convince me that the likes are the metrics that matter in your business. Someone convince me that that's true, because I have yet to see a direct correlation between number of likes to the metrics in your business that matter, like your income and your impact. Yes, sometimes that can be an indication, but I always like to remind people you can buy likes. On Instagram, you can literally buy likes, which shows you how little that actually has to do with the metrics that you want to track in your business that matter. Hey Marissa, nice to have you here. Anna says, agreed, it is vulnerable to comment. It can be so vulnerable to comment, right? And I don't know I'm gonna actually get to our content today. Thank you for the thumbs up and the hearts, y'all. But I think something I remember when I started my business, I'm a overthinker, overwatcher. That's some of my mindset work. And I would actually, before leaving a comment on someone's post, is this okay to say? Can I say this? And I would want to not leave a comment. And I say that because I bet all of you have at least done that once. And so think about that, and think about that when you put out content, that there's a bunch of people reading your posts that it's connected with, and they're second guessing themselves, wondering if it's even okay to comment. So those are all the PSAs. Dante says, so true. Marissa says, all the love for the lurkers. All the love for the lurkers. My people are some lurkers. I love my lurkers. I'm a lurkers. We can all unite. And just to see, again, just so when you're looking at your metrics, not creating stories around metrics without really understanding the full story and really understanding what's going on, and not looking at something like those likes and thinking this tells the whole story for me about a piece of content I'm creating and how much it's connecting with someone and what it's doing for my business. Especially when we look at a piece of content and think about what that does, where that fits in your marketing strategy and where that fits in your sales process. And really, if you think about the relationships you're building with people and the time that sometimes it can take to build a relationship, how one post doesn't stand alone. It's like a quilt you're building, right? It's one block on that quilt in that fabric of that relationship you're building. And I think it's really easy to get wrapped around one post, one set of likes, and make those metrics mean something without really looking at how that's fitting in the whole story with your strategy. So Stephanie says, this is so me when I comment LOL. I appreciate y'all saying that, because I think it's just so helpful for everyone who is lurking watching this, for them to hear where it's oh, we all do. We literally all do that. And I think it's just so helpful. Maybe for a big extrovert, it feels easy to comment, but I think a lot of us do that. And so just helpful, again, to normalize for everyone. Okay, so what I thought would be helpful here then is, if this is the case and we know this is true, and we're not gonna get super wrapped up around trying to figure out how to get more likes, or we're not gonna get super wrapped up around this, just knowing yes, people lurk, but I do think it's really important on the practical, tactical, strategic side of things to look at when you create content, you do pour time and energy into that. That is a vehicle for creating relationships. That is an important part of your strategy for, how you're building that know, like, and trust, and looking at then how can we make sure you're leveraging that time, that energy, that content you're creating so you're getting the most out of every post you put out there. And so you can increase that connection with your people, and you can increase the eyeballs, even if they're lurking eyeballs, the eyeballs looking at your content, and you can increase those conversions on the back end. Anna says, I totally lurk, yes. I love you so much. Y'all are making me so happy today. Thank you for all being here. So gonna break down 3 really practical things. Again, I know we often talk mindset, we often talk about more on the clarity mindset side of things, but I wanna just really break down some very practical things that you can take from today and just start implementing without having to change all of the other things you're doing with your content. And it says all about the conversion. Yes. Okay, so the first thing here to look at with your content, and we're looking at how can we help leverage your content more, get more eyeballs on it, get more of those conversions. This is like content marketing, relationship building, content strategy 101. I know you've heard this in some way before, but I want to do a refresher on this and give some examples, because this is something I edit a lot of my clients' content. I give them a lot of feedback on their content and copy. And this is something, even if this is something like they've heard before, we're often revisiting. And this is something I'm revisiting in my content often, because it's just so easy when you're creating a lot of work to forget about. And that is the importance of your subject and heading lines and your opening line to a piece of content. Before you snooze on me, because I get this isn't the most exciting stuff to talk about, but it really is important, because if you think about especially with written content or with messages popping up or the promo post, what is the first thing someone sees? It's either your subject line or that first written line in a piece of in your post. And what do most of us do when we are bleeding hearts who love our work? We spend so much time on the body of our content. We throw it into an email and we spend 2 seconds on the subject line. Don't lie to me. I know you have done that. I have done that. There's no shame in that. But I think we want to start thinking about, wait a second, what is the first thing someone sees that is going to tell them if they should even pay attention to my content? That's going to tell them if they should even lurk. It's actually that subject line or that heading, right? Same thing with when you write a piece of content, you pour your heart into it. Most of us don't go back to that first line and take a moment to think, does this first line tell someone that they should read the rest of my post? Again, no shame. I do the same thing, but I think it's a really helpful place for all of us to pause. And it's a 5-minute exercise for everyone that can really help get more eyeballs, more lurkers on your content, and really help with the conversion. And without having to change your content strategy, right? Without having to change what's in the body of your content, spending that time to just spend 5 minutes, being 5-10 minutes, to really think practically and strategically about that subject line and about your opening. I'll give some examples here, because this is the most important real estate of your content. Again, that's gonna tell people this is something that you should pay attention to. This is something to lurk. Even if you don't comment, this is why you should read this post. Heather says, I get hung up on the subject, trying to get it right, so I get stuck and don't send the content. Anna says the opening line subject, yes. Heather, thank you for sharing that. I think that's so helpful to see how, here's practical, tactical, and here's where mindset, and here's where it's always both. It's never just one thing. And just noticing where that worry about getting it right and knowing this can sometimes keep us from even wanting to share the content in the first place that you spent your time and energy and poured your heart into. I think that's so helpful. So what I'm gonna offer here is, you can't screw it up. I always like to tell my clients, you can't fuck it up unless you don't show up. You can't fuck it up unless you stop. Excuse my French, but I can't help myself. So Heather, I think just a really great thing is I'll share some just practical ways I like to think about the subject line and opening line. But for everyone listening, what I would say with this is, take this as a suggestion. This is something you can play with. This is just a new way to tweak and to leverage the content you've already created. And then that reminder of releasing the pressure, where it's you literally can't fuck this up unless you don't hit the send or unless you don't hit post. And not that you're fucking it up if you don't hit share, but that's the only way your words don't get in front of people. And you can have the worst subject, here's the truth, you can have the worst subject line, the worst opening line in the entire world, and people will still read it. this is just going to help get more people to read it and help have more people understand why they should pay attention. Stephanie says, I've so been there. Marissa says, can't mess it up unless you stopped. Dante says, LOL. It's true, can't mess it up unless you stop. Can't fuck it up unless you stop or you don't share it. But then let's also just put a couple things to think about and some ways to make it a little easier for you, Heather, and you can let me know if you have questions around this. But permission to have the worst subject line and opening line in the world, and no, that's still better than not having one at all. And then there's only room for improvement and to play with it. So I'm gonna share a little bit on subject lines and then that first opening line. So with the subject line, something I personally like to do is challenge myself every time I'm sending something to write out at least 10 subject lines. Sometimes I'll do more because I find my first few, I like to use the example of when you make pancakes. Does anyone else realize whenever you make pancakes how the first pancake just sucks? It's always rubbery and kind of weird because you don't have the temperature hot enough. Maybe this is just me, I'm not the world's best cook, but my first pancake, when I do make pancakes, they're just kind of rubbery and not that great. The first subject line I write rarely, usually my intuition and my first decision is right, but when it comes to subject lines, usually my first version isn't the best one I've ever written. So I like to think of this a little like writing pancakes, where I just like to give myself the permission to let the first one suck and then write out at least 10 to 15. And I find I also get into a roll with them as I go. And generally as the fifth one or the sixth one or the seventh one, that's usually where the, not that you can screw it up, but where the better versions are hanging out. So that's something, just a really easy one there, permission. I write out 10 to 15. I usually have, if you have a team, I have my team actually pick the title we're gonna use because I find outside eyes are usually helpful so that I can kill my own darlings, because we tend to be a little more interested in something that's important to us, and it's not always the same thing that our people are gonna gravitate towards or that is important to our audience. So I always like to have a little separation there, which I find can be helpful, or if not, to walk away for 5 or 10 minutes before I pick that, so that I just have a little bit of that space there. I personally am a big fan of, with those subject lines, not giving it all away in the subject line. So when I first wrote content, my first year in business, if you go back to some of my old blog posts on my website, I think my titles were something like, I'm trying to think of something, but why self-love is important. Or I'm trying to think of understanding fear. That's not necessarily the title, but they were really spot on and really I'm telling you exactly what this blog post is going to be about. And something I've learned over the years is when you tell someone exactly what's in the email or what's in the live stream or what's in the post to come, people don't have as much of a reason to read it because you've just given the whole thing away. It's sort of like if you've ever watched a movie trailer and they give you the whole movie pretty much in the movie trailer, you're like, well, that kind of defeated the whole movie, point of this trailer. Now I know the whole, I'm not enticed to see it. I just watched the whole movie in 3 minutes. Kind of the same thing here. So something I like to play with is how can I tease out what I'm gonna tell you? How can I be a little bit of a tease, be a little bit of a flirt, give you an idea of what I'm gonna tell you without actually telling you what I'm gonna tell you. And you'll notice if you're on my email list and you got my emails with the live stream today, the way I talked about it, I didn't exactly tell you what we were gonna talk about. With the podcast, with any of my blog posts, we like to tease it out a little bit. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a hint. I'm gonna, flirt with you a little bit, but you don't get to see the whole, it's like when you're a female and you wear something that just shows a little skin without showing all the skin. We're doing the same thing with those subject lines. So that is something I personally like to do. I also have, this is something I give my clients. We have a cheat sheet for subject lines and headings that I give my clients, and it's something I created. And it's something just over time I've just found, I find it a lot harder to sit down and just have inspiration with something like this. I don't think it's how we naturally think about things. I find it a lot easier just to have some inspiration. This is something I can turn it into a freebie for y'all if it's something you want. But I find just, even if you take a look at, go grab a magazine, go grab some other emails you've really liked, things that have grabbed your attention, start paying attention to subject lines and opening lines that grab you. And you'll start to notice they follow similar formulas, and you can create your own cheat sheet. I think go get a female, I don't know, a Cosmo or something like that. And if you just flip through a few of those, you'll just get so many frameworks for subject lines and headings. And I think that can just be a great tool for you. And then you can still make it your own. You can still put your own flavor and spin on it, but a lot of these are just tested and tried. You can think like a Cosmo, they have tested and tried, and they know exactly what works and what's gonna grab eyeballs, because their bottom line, people buying magazines in a time where people aren't buying magazines that much, pretty much depends on it. I don't even know if Cosmo is still a thing. I just kind of aged myself. That might have been the magazine that was cool when I was 18. But y'all get what I'm saying, a magazine. Those are all tested and tried. And you know, I'm so not a formulas rules person, but I think having a framework for things like this can be super, super valuable, so that you can really spend the time and the creativity on filling that in with your you-ness, filling that in with your magic, filling that in with what you want to tease people into. Let's see here. Dante says, curiosity killed the cat, as they said. I try to use my first 3 lines to call out my audience and create intrigue that makes them want to click, see more. Intrigue is such a great word for this. I think intrigue is exactly it. I love that, Dante. That's so helpful. And exactly to what Dante's saying here in terms of that first few lines, and we'll talk about first lines in a moment. But think about it as like you are really calling your audience out. This is that first point of contact, right? So we do want to tease people a little bit. We want to let them know why people are busy. People got a lot of stuff in their face. Let people know why they should give you their valuable time. Not because you're not worth it, not because your work isn't worthy, not because you have to prove yourself, but I think just knowing, like, it's almost like a really great act of service where you're like, I know my people are busy. I know there's a lot of noise. I know they get so many emails every day. They get so much stuff on social media. How can I value their time? How can I show them I can be of service and make it a little easier for them and help them understand, here's why you should pay attention and read. And I think that can just even be a really nice reframe with like why this is even an important thing, and to see like this can still be really coming from a place of service. And then when you're calling someone out to the way Dante's speaking to, I always think of it as like, how can I speak to what are the challenges, problems my people are facing that I'm helping them with that this piece of content is going to solve? Or what are the results my people really, really want that this piece of content is going to help them with? And can I use that with that intrigue, with that teasing out in the subject line or in that opening line? Stephanie says, I like that, flirt with the subject. Now you're talking my language, LOL. Yeah, I mean, and Stephanie, think like, if this is speaking to you, we're building relationships, right? So if you think about how might I flirt with a man or a woman, whatever everyone's preference is, but just thinking about like, how might I flirt there? It's like, we don't give it all away, right? Like that is the art of the flirt. That is the art of the tease. Same here. And that builds a relationship somewhere else, right? That builds a relationship romantically. That's also going to help build your relationship with your audience. Anna says, yes, so good, Kim. I love you, Anna. Thank you. Says, I didn't think of using magazine. Love that idea. Going with what's tested and tried and true. Because, and this is like, I'd love to think that I'm just super brilliant at creating subject lines. And I will say, the more you do this, the more you become super brilliant at it, because I've now been doing this for however many years. Every single week we do so many of these. And this is something I force myself to do, and I don't have my team do. I don't hire out because it's important to me to be good at this. But all of my frameworks are just what Anna's saying. Like, I didn't reinvent the wheel. Like, these are out there. They're like, you've seen them, like the number one, blah, 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 for blah, 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 blah. You know, you've seen so many of these, and go borrow what's tested and tried and then make them your own, and you'll find they just become second nature. Anna says, yes, because your work is worth it. Great reframe. Thank you for saying so. I love you. Okay, so with these subject lines and heading to scene here, if there's anything else I wanted to share with those, with the tease, not giving it all away, write out 10 to 15 of those. Go grab some magazines, go grab some of your favorite emails that you like, and not to copy, we're not copying here, but steal like an artist, borrow what's already tested and tried, and then use it as a framework. You still get to be super, super creative with that. And then just that reframe again, that it's not sleazy, it's not manipulative, it's not like, I think sometimes people think this is like playing the game or something. I really see this as an act of service. You're just helping your people understand and valuing their time and helping them understand why they should give you their time with your content, with your work. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to share with the subject or heading lines, but let me know if you have any questions about those. Oh, that was the other piece there, just as a recap. Speaking to, I always find with that tease, what I find very helpful is speaking to, again, challenge and problem your people are facing that you're going to solve in that content, or the results they want. So if we look even here at the subject here, line, the heading, the title for this live stream, 3 ways you're leaving money on the table. I know that grabs your attention. I also know for my audience, what you want is you want to be able to make money doing the work you love. You're in business. You don't want to leave money on the table. And I know I added in 3 ways you're leaving money on the table with your content. I know that is a concern and a fear, right? That like you're not getting content right, that you're like, that it's not converting, and the practical shifts you can make for those conversions. So all of that there is, it's not giving it away, but it is speaking to the challenges and problems that I know, because this comes up for clients all the time, like super normal, practical things that come up. And it's speaking to the results and benefits I want for you to get from this live stream. And it's speaking to that in the subject line without giving everything away. I'm still teasing it out. You still gotta join me to get those answers. Barry says, can you send a replay? Missed the first part. Absolutely. I'll make sure you get a replay, Barry. And I'll send everyone, there will be a replay next Friday, and this will stay and get pinned to the top of the group as well. 1,100%? Is that even a percentage? Okay. So the other thing here that I wanted to talk about with these, and we're gonna keep, this might be a long one, y'all, but that's okay, is that opening line of your content, that first line of your content. So this is not a conversation about like, and now there's a formula and you have to write in all capital letters, or you have to, I don't know, use these 3 words to get people's attention. That is, I don't want anyone to walk away from this live stream because I'm so anti rules and formulas. However, I do want you to walk away from this conversation thinking about that first opening line in a piece of copy, in a piece of content, in an email, in a post, when you introduce yourself on a video. That is the first point of contact after that subject line, and that's the second most valuable piece of real estate in your content. We do want to be mindful with that. We don't have to follow rules. It's none of that, but we do want to be super mindful. And we want to think as business owners, and as business owners coming from a place of, I want to serve people. My work is worth it. I do want this to connect with people. I do want people to get the value from this post. How can I make sure I'm leveraging this first line and just spending, again, 5 minutes after I create a piece of content or copy to go back to that first line and ask myself, is this going to grab someone's attention? Am I being mindful here and really helping someone understand why they should keep reading the rest of this content? Or did I just try to like check this off a checklist because I got to create content for the week and I feel like this is something I'm supposed to do, and I kind of just threw this away and forgot about the fact that if I'm doing that, forget the whole like energy conversation here about like the energy you're putting into your content, but I probably didn't take very much time with that opening line. And that's really all it takes, is a few extra minutes to be mindful with that opening line. And that opening line, again, it's just like your subject line. Think about that first line of your content. It's like your subject line light. It's just another version of the subject line. Let me know if that part is making sense, y'all. So here are some things I like to think about. And I actually pulled just a couple examples. I'm not saying I'm like the world's best opening line writer for content, but just to give some examples of what we're talking about, some different ways to think about it. So you can see this isn't a formula. This isn't a one size fits all thing, but some things that you can apply to your content and find what works for you. And just that question to keep in the back of your mind as you're looking through this is, would this grab someone's attention? I always like to ask myself, if I saw this, would I want to stop and read this? Would like this make me pay attention? So just some questions you can play with there. I think really for my creatives, I know I have a lot of creatives here, and I know for my creatives, because I talk to you during the week quite a bit, sometimes the crunchiness that can come up around this is like, I don't want to sound like a marketer in my content. I don't want to like ruin the creativity or the story or the work I'm doing. Like it feels like important to stay true to that creativity and to that like core of the piece and the work you're writing. So I get you, I feel you, I hear you, I am you, 100,000, 10%. What was the number I made up before? So I think a really easy way to open up content for those of you is to play with opening your content in the middle of a story. I think this is just like such an easy hack, practical tip. So instead of, I think so often we want to be very linear in our content, in our posts, but I find a really great opener and just a great way to grab people, just have your opening line, start your story, start your content in the middle of the story. This is, I don't know why this comes into mind, but it's sort of like the jokes where it's like a duck walked into a bar, a guy walked into a bar, whatever that is. Like, that's starting in the middle of the story. That's part of why that joke will grab people's attention. So just start in the middle of the story. A lot of times I'll start in the middle of a acting example or story. And that's just a great way to start your content, but also that'll help grab those eyeballs a little bit more. And people are like, it's sort of like the tease where they're like, well, wait, what's the rest of the story? I want to hear the rest of it. Another really easy just framework to play with, practical way to open your posts that are just gonna like go back after you write your content, just go back and see like, could I just make this opening, could I be a little more mindful of my opening line, is playing with opening with a question. I know I've talked about this in probably 1,000 different ways because y'all know I'm obsessed with questions so much. I have a whole podcast about it, but questions are really fascinating. Our brain, when it sees a question, it is just compelled to want to answer it. Our brain hates open loops. It just is designed to answer questions. It's part of why they're so powerful. It's why we use them in coaching, among other reasons. It's why you'll see a lot of copy starts with questions. It's also really helpful, I find, opening with a question instead of telling someone something can also be a really empowering way to share an idea to compel someone to listen, because you're not telling someone what you want them to think, you're asking them if this is what they think, if this is what they're going through. So I think it can kind of, one question can check a lot of boxes off. So really great way to open up a post and grab some eyeballs. Let's see. Again, just kind of the similar idea with the subject line heading, speaking to the problem, speaking to those results and teasing things out. We're just playing with like, can you be a tease and just seeing like, this is not that different from a subject line and heading. And then just a like general idea I like to play with is sometimes, not all the time, you don't be a one note musician. Like we want to play a couple notes, have a couple different notes in our arsenal. But I think something that can be really powerful if you've written a post that's really important and you want to make sure you're speaking to people and that they know why to pay attention to. I find having an opening line that is a little shocking, it's an attention grabber, that is saying sort of the thing people don't expect you to say or that no one else wants to say, which can be helpful in content anyway. When you can open your content with something like that, that really can compel people to like, wait, I need to see the rest of this. I can't believe she just said that. What is that? So that's just another tool you can keep in your toolbox for those opening lines. Let me know questions, reflections, thoughts on any of that, and then we'll move. I want to make sure we move on to 2 and 3 here in terms of ways you're leaving money on the table with your content and some of those practical tips. But let me know if you have any questions on the opening line or that subject line. Okay, so the second one here is probably the one I lovingly give my clients the most like pushes and nudges around. And that is remembering that when you have created a piece of content, you're not done with it yet. You still have to sell your content. I think sometimes we as business owners think we only have to sell our paid work and that we only have to sell, get on a phone call with me or hire me or buy my course or buy my program. And I think we forget that we also have to sell people on why they should pay attention to our content and build a relationship with us. And I don't mean that in a yucky way, like you have to sell yourself or in a gross way, but when you've created a podcast or a live stream like this, I think most of us, like the natural thing is like, I'm done, I put it out in the world, like I've done my work, like good on me, I've done my marketing. And I think that is one of the ways that you lose so many eyeballs and you really don't leverage the power of your content. And one of the easiest ways to get more mileage for all of that effort you pour into your work is remembering to take the time to promote your free, unpaid content. And I can give a couple examples here. Let me know if you have any questions about that. I know sometimes some stuff can come up around this. So I think it's also just an interesting thing to notice where it's like, oh, and is there something coming up around this? Like, do I have resistance or do I have something coming up that doesn't become the practical tactical, but then it's really helpful to know, oh, I've got some mindset stuff coming up around needing to promote my content. I need a little water, y'all. And I'm just checking my notes here. So I'm gonna use my podcast as an example. This is an example I had for all of you. When I record my podcast, I record it in my closet. Many of you who listen know because I've always got my cat in there with me. When I hit end record and I send it off and we upload it to iTunes and the places it goes, it's not done yet. It's sort of like now the recording is done, but I still got a fair amount. I've still got to do the marketing on it. I think this is very similar to when you make a movie and the movie is in the can and it's ready to go to the theaters. there's still a lot of work to be done, and not like from a hard work hustle place, but like that's only one part of it. What makes that movie successful, what gets people to listen to the podcast, then becomes all the marketing for the movie, all the marketing for the podcast, all the marketing for the live stream, whatever that is. And most of us are just hitting record, done, publishing, and maybe we send it to our email list. Maybe we like post it once on social media. And that's kind of the equivalent of making a whole movie, especially since a movie is a lot of time and energy, and putting out one movie trailer. And I don't know any of you who, like, you tell me, have you ever gone to see a movie and paid money for a movie that has only had one movie trailer? Or even watch something on Netflix where it's like, you usually have to see a bunch of trailers, right? So the same with your content. Remember, you still gotta sell your content. So with the podcast, I'll share our process there, and this is something I'm always talking with clients about too. It's how can we make sure we're promoting this multiple times and giving people multiple times to know that there's something for them, with what we were talking about before, right? Helping them understand this is something that they want to listen to, but making sure we're putting it in front of people's faces multiple times for a single episode. So with the podcast, it gets uploaded in the various places. We send it to you in an email. I post it in my IG stories. I post it in the Facebook group. I post it on my Instagram feed. And then we post it another 2 times on Instagram, another 2 times on Instagram stories, another 2 times in the Facebook group. So it's getting shared 3 times in the group. It's getting shared to the email list. And then we're constantly referencing other episodes on a single episode, or I'm talking to you here, right? What I'm doing is essentially telling you, I've got a podcast, you should go listen to it. So we're making sure it's getting referenced multiple times. We're making sure any piece of content is being sold, that I'm selling that content so that people know they should go and listen to it or watch it or read it. So same for all of you. I think a really easy place to check in with if you feel like you're not getting the conversions you want with your content. You're like, I know I've got some lurkers. I know this is working for me, but I feel like I put a lot of time and effort into my content. Maybe I'm investing money in my content in terms of, if you have a podcast, you might be paying someone to edit that, or for team efforts. I want to make sure I'm really leveraging that time investment, that money investment. So I'm really building those relationships through my content. So I'm really getting the eyeballs and really serving people through my work. This second practical tactical tip for you is to look at, am I actively selling my free content, and really teaching people and telling people exactly where to go, and making sure I'm doing this multiple times for any of those pieces of content. Okay, no comments, just making sure. Just seeing here, I think that one's pretty straightforward, and I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I do want to just drop a seed and plant a seed, I should say, for all of you. And I think that's just easiest place to start and easiest place to check in with anything you are doing content-wise. All right, and the third really practical shift you can make with your content, and this one is, I think, one of the easiest, and I think one of the most powerful. I mean, they're all, I think your opening line, I think all of these, like, they play together because those are going to help draw eyeballs, but I think this one here is the one that can really help your content convert at a higher level when you have those eyeballs and have those lurkers. And this is something I lovingly challenge all of my clients on, because I think almost all of us have an opportunity to do more of this. And this is a 2-parter, but this is to sell in your content, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that, and then to tell people what you want them to do next. So what I mean by sell in your content, whenever you create a piece of value content, there's such an opportunity for you to really use that to sell your ideas, sell your work, sell your results, sell your client results, tell and teach people that you work with people, to help people understand about your different programs and offers, to help people understand whatever it is you want them to know about you and your work, and to use it as an opportunity to sell without literally selling. So if we use this live stream for an example, I wasn't even doing this consciously because I do it so much, but I'm sure I've mentioned the fact that I have clients multiple times. I'm sure I maybe didn't do it in this one, but I mention often my personal results in my business. I mentioned that I had a 38K cash month last month. I'll mention this is something I support my clients with all the time behind the scenes. I'll mention, I love to help my clients with their content, right? I'm constantly, even though I'm not saying to you, hey, do you want to work with me one-on-one? You should book a call with me. Let's book a discovery call. Here's my work. Even though I'm not directly selling, I've been selling my work throughout the live stream. I also sold my podcast, right? This is not a podcast, but I mentioned my podcast multiple times. I've let you know, hey, I have a podcast. I'm gonna let you know right now, it's really good. You should go listen to it. It's about questions. One question, unapologetic questions for unapologetic results. I didn't say the title, but like I've been mentioning that. I've been seeding and planting those things. So if you're watching, you're like, oh yeah, Kim has clients. Oh yeah, her clients get these kinds of results. This is what she helps her clients with. Kim gets those kind of results. Kim has a podcast. All of that is I'm selling throughout this without directly selling. And I think this is such an opportunity for all of you. Probably talked about this in different ways before, but just such an opportunity when you're creating valuable content, when you're being of service, when you're delivering that beautiful value and helping people, and you've done the practical of checking those subject lines and working that opening line and making sure that you're promoting your content in different places so you get those eyeballs, and you're maybe repurposing it so it gets that eyeballs, then use that piece of content you created as a platform as well. And remember, the whole idea here is, yes, to build those relationships and yes, to be of service, but you also have a business, and you also have a business that is meant to be profitable and to make you money, and that you also sell something. And so even if you're not literally making an offer, you can still sell your work over and over and over again in a piece of content. So I think it's just a really great challenge and muscle to build, and just to see how often can you sell your work. Teach people what you want them to know about your work, your results, your client results, how you work with your clients, what you do, other pieces of content in a piece of content. Let's see. Stephanie says, that was a great tip. I don't promote my lives or written content enough. And as you were saying, I thought back to when I used to send out reminders, I had so much more engagement. Stephanie, I love you for sharing that, because I think it's just everyone listening can probably like, oh yeah, maybe that's the case too. And I think it's just so nice you already have that data there. When I sent out reminders, I got more engagement. And just to see, sometimes it's so easy for us to think, like with lives, like I must be doing something wrong with my lives. People don't like my content. I'm not saying this is what you're thinking, Stephanie, but I know, because I hear this from clients, where it's like, there must be something wrong. Maybe it's the algorithm, which that could be a real thing. Maybe it is my subject line. Maybe it's that people don't like my topic. Maybe people like, this is boring and they don't want to listen. Why aren't people engaging? People don't want it. I only have lurkers. And then sometimes it's so interesting to see where it's like, oh, interesting. Or maybe I just didn't promote this enough and let people know to come watch. And it can be such a simple shift sometimes, and such a simple tweak that can make such a big difference. But it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole and try to fix a bunch of things that aren't broken, or to make it mean like I'm doing something wrong, I'm not doing something good enough. And so I really appreciate you sharing that as evidence that, like, yes, it literally does help with that engagement. And I mean, you all know, like if you're on my email list, I send you a reminder before I go live. We post in the Facebook group before I go live. I post on Instagram before I go live. We send a replay out a week later. Like, we share it multiple times. Honestly, we'd probably share it more if I wasn't putting out so much content. I'm just mindful of not putting too much in your inbox. But I think it's just like helpful to see, and then helpful to also see, like, and you're hearing it from other people, and they're saying, when I do this, when I send those reminders, when I promote, when I sell my content and literally tell people, this is what I'm going to talk about, this is, something you can go listen to, that helps drive more eyeballs and engagement. So thank you, Stephanie. Marissa says, yes, more reminders, more engagement. Someone just told me on a call earlier that she appreciated my emails because sometimes things get busy and she misses my lives, and the email replays are a great reminder. Yes, that's so great. And that's I think there's something beautiful here to what Marissa's saying, like more evidence for everyone watching now and on the replay, and to seeing, especially with how busy people's lives are and how much content and emails and things we all get. I think we forget with things like reminders, it kind of similar to the lurkers conversation. A lot of people do expect to watch a replay when you're live, or to listen to a podcast a week later. They have a time, like I listen to podcasts on my morning walk on Sunday or something like that. It's not always right when we go live, or right when a podcast drops, or right when your blog post goes live. So when you're sending those reminders and you're selling your content, that acts so that people go and pay attention in the moment now, but it also really acts as that, like, oh right, there's that reminder for someone, like, I was meaning to listen to that episode. I was meaning to watch that live. I was meaning to catch that blog post. And it really helps so that people can bookmark it and catch it later. And I think it's just so nice because you're seeing all this evidence from other people. It really does make a difference. And I just keep going back to, for all of you, because I know you care about this, it's an act of service. It's not annoying. It's not bombarding someone. Marissa said she literally had someone say they appreciate it. And why does someone appreciate that? Because it's a really nice, helpful act of service and reminder. It's like if someone signed up for your email list, they kind of want to receive your content. Otherwise, they'd unsubscribe. They wouldn't have signed up in the first place. So I share that just because I know the noise that can come up around sending those reminders, around putting too many things out where it's like, oh, I don't want to be annoying, or like, oh, people have heard about this so much. And I think just seeing like that inverse is true. People appreciate it. If they're in your world, it's because they want to hear from you. This is a like silly example that pops up for that with the reminders, but I think about this with dating. If you're dating someone and you like them, it doesn't matter how much they text you to remind you that they like you. It doesn't matter. Like they could just, like if my man texted me all day long saying he loved me, I'd be like, cool, you can just keep sending those to me. That's only annoying if I don't feel the same way and I don't want to receive those text messages. Otherwise, it's really nice to receive those reminders and those messages and those touch points. So a little bit of a different conversation, but I think similar with those reminders, and that if someone signed up for your list, if someone's joined your Facebook group, if someone's decided and raised their hand for your content, those reminders are like, they want to keep getting them. They want to keep consuming it. It's only frustrating and annoying if someone didn't raise their hand for it, which is why, aside from the fact that it's not legal, we don't add people to email lists unless they've subscribed, right? Okay. Who knew I could, I'm always amazed at how I think like the practical tacticals, I'm like, we're just going to blow through this in 20 minutes and it's almost been an hour. And there was one other thing I wanted to share here, but Marissa says, yes, and I definitely used to be the person who felt annoying doing the emails. I think we've all been there. You know what's really interesting? And then I promise we'll talk about telling people what to do next, because that was the last thing with this piece here. I think what's really, really interesting, Marissa, and I think for everyone, is for everyone who's worried about being annoying with emails, there's someone who feels like they're not sending enough emails. For everyone who's like, oh my gosh, I send way too many, there's someone who's like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to send an email every day and I can't keep up. And I think it's like, it's just so nice to see where it's like both are true and both aren't true. And this is when it goes back, like there isn't one size fits all formula, and it just shows us like the noise that can come up on either side. And I think it just goes back to, for everyone, finding what works for them and what works for their audience, but seeing if we're having that noise on either side, like we know that generally is more a mindset thing than an actual practical thing. In fact, I know people who teach emailing every day as a strategy and as a really great way to build relationships. So I always find that just an interesting, funny thing. So Marissa, thank you for sharing that. Just wanted to see if there was anything else that I wanted to share with the selling yourself and your work. I think that was the whole piece there. And then we're gonna talk about telling people what you wanna do next. But just as a reminder and a recap there, permission. And I know that can be an edge, but I'm challenging everyone here. I feel like I've challenged people this in different ways, and we've done live streams on this in different ways before. But play with that and integrate that into your content. It really is such a big game changer for your content. And then the last piece here for this really practical shift you can make to increase those connections and conversions is to remember to tell people what you want them to do at the end of a piece of content. And that does not mean you are, again, gross or yucky, or that, you know, people don't like what you're doing. Oh, sorry, I got messages popping up. I think I would just offer that again as a reframe where it's like, this is you being of service. People are busy. People don't always figure, like, it's sort of like, people are busy, but people also have a lot of noise. And I think what happens so often on the business owner side, on the person creating content side, we get in our heads and we're sort of like, well, if this is good enough, they'll figure out what I want them to do. Or if my work is amazing, they'll connect the dots. Or like, I shouldn't have to connect the dots or tell them, because they, like, I've been talking about it this whole time. They should just know. Or like, if I just kind of tell them, like, of course they're gonna know, like, it's sort of like obvious or annoying or bossy, or fill in the noise that can come up. And like, hey, it happens for all of us. But what I wanna offer is like the complete opposite is true. I really think, again, it goes back to being of service. I think it is of service if you can be really clear and specific and help someone understand, hey, if you've liked this thing I've been sharing with you, if this was valuable to you, if this was beneficial to you, and you want to take this to the next step, whatever that next step might be for you. It might be leave a comment below. It might be like my post. It might be sign up for my email newsletter. It might be get on a call with me. It might be to hire me to buy my product or service. But whatever that is, what you're doing is you are being a really service-oriented business owner that's making it easy for the person in front of you to take that next step, to get the support, to get the thing they want. And I think it's just really interesting how we think somehow that is pushy or mean or bad. And I think we forget, it's like, no, that's being really helpful. Nothing is more annoying as a consumer, and I've had this, as like really wanting to buy something or invest in something or figure out the next step and trying to figure out where the heck you have to go or what you have to do. I recently just experienced this and the only reason I purchased is because this was something that was very important to me, but something I recently purchased that I had to like sift through. I cannot even tell you so many emails to find the really vague PS, to find the really vague like link to the page that like, it took me 20 minutes. And again, if this was not something that was super important to me and someone who hadn't marketing wise built up a relationship for a really long time, there is no way I would have jumped through those hoops to buy anything else. Like the second anything is like, I have to think about it too much or like jump through too many things or you don't tell me the next step, I got other things to do. Hey Laura Ann, nice to saw you on there. Hi, nice to have you on. So I think it's just a like helpful thing to remember, like to think about your own, like what your own experience is. And that's if you know there's a hoop to even jump through. But so often, if you're not connecting the dots for your people and making it really clear, if you're a client of mine, you know, like probably one of the most annoying comments in your content or copy is like connect the dots here, connect the dots for your people. But if you're not connecting the dots for your people and then telling them specifically what you want them to do, they're just not picking up what you're putting down. It's not that they don't want to buy. It's not that they don't want to sign up. It's not that they don't want to comment. It's not that they don't want to hire you or get on a call. It's literally because they don't know that's an option. It's because you've just made it really hard for them to figure that out. It's sort of like, it would be so easy for me to assume everyone here right now just knows I want you to book a discovery call with me, right? Like if you want help with your content, if you want help with your mindset, if you want help getting out of your way and like, you know, rewiring the brain and cleaning up those stories and the trash that comes up around content and getting visible and taking up space. And if you want help with your content strategy and looking at the practical and tactical and getting out there and selling and with your sales process so you can make those connections and so you can make money, you should book a discovery call with me, right? Like that's me telling you and connecting those dots for you. And it would be so easy for me to think, well, I'm sharing this stuff all the time. They know I want them to get on a call with me. They know what the next step is. Like they obviously know that. And they know that they can like from this live figure out how to like, there's a post somewhere, but think about it from your side. You wouldn't necessarily know that. And then would you even know where to book a call? Like maybe you would be able to find my website, but my last name is really fucking hard to spell. So like, that's a lot to ask of someone to like first connect the dots where it's like, oh, she mentioned clients and stuff. Maybe that means she could support me and help me. For me to assume you know what I do. For me to assume you know that means book a discovery call or consultation. For me to know you understand exactly where to go book that call. And then to expect you to go do the legwork to like figure out where that link is on my website. And I know that sounds so absurd if you're watching, but I like just notice like how often that can come up with content and how often we do that. And we sort of just expect, no, but they know, they figure it out. It's just gonna be like so annoying or so obvious. And I just wanna keep reminding you, it's probably not obvious at all. If you're not getting those conversions you want, especially if you've taken those other two steps we've talked about, where it's like, you've looked at your subject line and your headings, you've looked at that opening line, you're sharing, valuable content, you're, selling your work and your content, you're promoting your content so that people pay attention and you're not getting the conversions you want, there's a good chance you're not connecting the dots for people and you're not making a clear and specific ask. We call it a call to action, right? But I think even with call to actions, people can be so vague or just miss it altogether. And I get that this can become very mindset related as well. I know, because this is what I chat with clients about all the time. Like, it's one thing for me to tell you that, and I know a lot can come up around like, oh, but now I got to tell people to book a call with me or to hire me or to sign for my email list. And I know that, one of my clients calls it mindset trash, which is why I keep saying that, because I think that's such a great phrase. But I think a lot of mindset trash can come up around that. So that's normal. That's human. I think, lots of whole nother conversation. And then that's great because that's something to look at. But I think just seeing like that's a really big opportunity. And that's also a really practical shift you can make and look at every piece of content I'm making. Am I ensuring that I'm connecting the dots for people and I'm making it really clear and I'm giving them a really clear ask and telling them what I want them to do next? And again, I'm going to reframe that. Telling someone what to do is just helping connect the dots for them and just helping them when it is so noisy. It's like you're just giving them the shortcut. If someone doesn't want to do what you're telling them, I promise you, you can't like pressure anyone into a conversion. You can't like pressure people into buying from you or getting on the call from you. Or getting on the call with you, getting on the phone with you. You can't like pressure people into that. No one here, there's nothing you're going to do that's gonna like manipulate someone into that. They're just not going to. So you get to just take that. Like that's just not even a thing. And I think here you just get to see, but for the people who do want to, what you're doing is you're just making it super simple and easy for them. I always like to say, make it really easy for people to pay you. Make it easy for people to hire you. Make it easy for people to take that next step, which means connect the dots and tell them really clearly what it is. Specifics are always really helpful in sell. And then give them that really clear direct call to action and spell out specifically and tell people what you want to do. Sign up below. Use the link in my bio to book a free call. Click here, buy here, enroll here, sign up here. But really spell out what that is for people. If we were using my example, and honestly, if you do want to get on a discovery call with me, that was an example, but I would love to connect with any of you who want support. This is all my jam, and we do have spots opening up in May and June, so I will drop a link below this live stream after we're live, and you can use that link to book a call to talk super, pressure free, and we can chat about what it would look like to work together and how I can support you in building, growing, and scaling your business. That is an example, and it's also true, right? I'm telling you, I'm going to drop a link below. Use that link, book a free call. So I think, again, I think it can sound very obvious, but I want you to see like it also gets to be that simple and that practical. And just remind yourself to make sure you're doing that at the end of a piece of content. And if it isn't, you don't want to sell at the end of a piece of content, that's fine. But then give them a direct call to action. Drop an emoji below if you're with me that sometimes the practical shifts can make a huge difference with your content and those conversions. That's an example of that, right? Like that is a really clear, direct ask, a really clear telling you if this was a written post. You can do that here too. Leave me an emoji, right? I could say to all of you right now, that would be a direct ask or telling you what to do. Everyone leave me an emoji if you loved this live stream, if you found this helpful. Or I could say, tell me which tip 1 through 3, which practical shift is the one you're going to take action on this week in your content. 1, I'm going to take a look and spend some time giving some love to my subject lines or those headings. 2, I'm going to make sure that I am spending more time promoting and selling my content to get more eyeballs over to it. 3, I'm going to sell my work and what I want people to know in my content, and I'm going to spend some time telling people what to do, connecting the dots and telling people what to do. Right? You can literally do that here if you want, and that's a really great example of, it doesn't have to be a sell, but it's telling people that next step you want to do. It's telling people to engage with your content. On the podcast, we tell people, leave a review if you enjoyed the podcast, and you'll win, a free session. We pick a free winner every month. Those are just all examples. And meta, big picture, those are all examples of me selling my work in my content while we're talking. Marissa says, the praise hands emojis, my emoji saying I love this live stream. Thank you, I love you, and thank you for also being a really beautiful reflection of what we're talking about. But see, like that, I think this is, thank you, Marissa. I think this is just nice for everyone watching now, for my lurkers, for people watching on the replay. Marissa might not have dropped that emoji had I not directly asked for it, had I not given that direct call to action or told her what to do there, told all of you what to do. And I think this is a really nice way to close this out for all of you where we were talking about the lurkers at the beginning of the episode. I think this also, when you give some, especially for the engagement piece, when you give people really easy things to do, really easy ways to engage, it does make it easier for lurkers to engage. So if someone gives me a really easy thing I don't have to think about, It's not a challenging question. It's not something I'm like, oh, I feel embarrassed. I'm going to say the wrong thing here. But it's like, drop a GIF below if this landed with you, or say 1 if you think this, say 2 if you think this. It gives people really easy ways to engage as well. So that's sort of like an engagement tip, but it also works here with what we're talking about and kind of ties into the beginning of our conversation. So I hope this is helpful for you. I hope that all of you will take one of these, at least, practical shifts this week and apply it to your content. Report back. Let me know how it's working for you. Let me know if you're watching on the replay too, if you have any questions around any of these. And just a thought to close on, I think what's really nice about something like this, really want to like be reminded of what we said to Heather at the beginning. You can't fuck it up unless you don't put your content out there, right? Unless you don't show up. So like, I want to close with, these are practical shifts you can make. And sometimes practical shifts can be really great in helping with our mindset and helping us like not get looped around things like, oh, my content isn't good enough. Only my mom's liking my post. And I really don't want anyone here when you get off the live stream now to be like, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff I have to do and change and fix in my content. And like, there's all these like things to obsess over. Like, that is not the point of this conversation at all. Take one of these and play with it. These are practical shifts you can make for more of those connections and conversions so that you're not leaving money on the table. But again, just that reminder, you can't fuck it up. You can't mess it up unless you don't show up, unless you don't put your content out there. So this is not now an excuse to go let the perfectionism, I'm not doing enough brain monsters run wild. Not the point of this conversation. So I love you all. Thank you for hanging. Oh, my direct call to action. I almost forgot. Don't be like me. Leave yourself a nice sticky note somewhere so you remember what you want to share at the end of a live stream or at the end of a conversation, because otherwise it's really easy to talk about this and literally forget. But we have a free live training next week in the Facebook group where I'm going to be sharing my secrets, my lessons, my takeaways from making 96K cash in 90 days. I'm going to share a look behind the scenes, and I'm also going to break down the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action you can tap into so that you can apply some of those lessons, some of those takeaways to your business, because you know I am all about there is not a one-size-fits-all formula, but I also really want to talk about how you can apply this to your business for making money on your terms, doing it your way, because if you know me, that is something I'm really proud about in my business is that was all done my way, doing it, with work that lights me up. And that's what I want for you too. So we're going to look at how we can take some of those lessons and takeaways and apply it to your business. So you don't have to be a carbon copy or do the same thing, but you can tap into some of those for making more money on your terms in your business. So I will drop a link for that below the live stream. There's also, if you go to the top of the Facebook group, the banner, if you click on that, there should be a link attached to that. Sign up for that. We've got a nice playbook for you with questions and prompts so that you really can apply this to your business, and we will jam on that next Tuesday. All right, now I'm done for real. I love you all. Thank you for playing. Thank you for hanging, and I'll be back next week. We will jump into that free training. Bye.